And new today, Louisiana Central is kicking off its economic roadshow titled We Make Good Stuff. As Colin Vidros reports, the goal for the roadshow is to create an economic development plan for the 10 parish regions that make up Louisiana Central.
Economic development, ultimately, at the end of the day, happens at the local level, and it's our job to make sure that we're maximizing those opportunities.
Louisiana Central's We Make Good Stuff Roadshow tour rolled into Vernon Parish on Wednesday as the organization looks to give Central Louisiana an economic boom by surveying its 10 parish service areas and addressing what needs to happen next.
It gives us a better understanding, a better education of what's happening on the ground in these individual communities. Being here in Leesville and Vernon Parish has really helped inform what we thought was happening, but it also educates us about the future of opportunity.
According to Louisiana Central, this new tour will, quote, engage directly with 100 businesses and community leaders to ensure that their perspectives remain front and center, end quote. For Vernon Parish, that means capitalizing on the parish's $3 billion economy and expanding on revitalization efforts.
Partnering with Louisiana Central gives us a much larger voice where the sum of our parts is greater than the individuals. And in that vein, I think that I'm excited particularly about the partnership with Louisiana Central to revitalize those efforts because it gives us a much larger voice on a national front or a state front in publicizing and selling our community and understanding what our assets are. We're extremely excited about the opportunity to participate and form a part of the strategic plan they're working on. In particular, we're looking to diversify our economy here.
One of Chris Massengill's goals as newly appointed CEO is to make sure the organization is staying focused on businesses that have been investing in the Cenla community and elevating their economic development strategy across the board.
Governor Landry's made it very clear that we're moving forward about being aggressive with economic opportunities. He's proven that out. Secretary Bourgeois has helped us to actually position Louisiana Central to do this strategic plan. We've seen enormous economic announcements over the last 16 months that the governor's been in office. Over $70 billion in new capital investment in the state of Louisiana. We feel Central Louisiana is positioned well to have success with that, but we have to do our part. We've got to be ready.
Hoping to prioritize the region's assets and bring a new vision for the area's economic development plan as the tour continues. In Leesville for News Channel 5.